Dixon coming with you for another edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. Of course, it can also be called This Day in African American Baseball History. And I'm going to talk about historic things that happened on October the 10th. Today is October the 10th, 2025, and we're going to jump right in there. It's kind of late tonight, so some of you won't be catching this live. But if you do catch me later on, or if you catch me now, that'll be great. But if you catch me later on, go ahead and hit that bell and subscribe and follow me. I'm a baseball historian. I've been doing baseball history, conducting this kind of research for 45 years, okay, going on 46. So, all right, so what I do is, it's basically going to be 3 segments, okay? So the first segment is This Day in Black Baseball History. I'm going to give you some things that happened on October the 10th, and then I'll give you with commentary from myself related to things I know about that particular event. And then also a new thing that I added in here is called Coming and Going. So I'm going to talk about a ball player that was born today and maybe one that passed away. That would be someone who was going, okay? So we're going to jump right in here and get busy. I think it's giving everybody enough time to get in. So let's start with October the 10th, 1934. And if you read my book, The Dizzy and Daffy Dean Barnstorming Tour, Race, Media, and America's National Pastime, then you'll see that I talked about the Dizzy and Daffy Dean Tour. So in 1934, after Dizzy and Daffy Dean emerged victorious from the 1934 World Series with a defeat over the Detroit Tigers, on October 10th, they began their tour against the Kansas City Monarchs. So they're going to play 6 games against the Kansas City Monarchs. They're going to play 2 games against the New York Black Yankees, 2 games against the Philadelphia Stars, and 3 games against the Pittsburgh Crawfords all across the country. And that's the premise of my book, The Dizzy and Daffy Dean Barnstorming Tour, Race, Media, and America's National Pastime. Hey guys, that's an excellent book. If you haven't seen it, I might put a cover on this link tonight just so you can know about the book. If you don't have it, it's one that you might want to add to your collection. It's a good read and about Major League Baseball and also Negro League Baseball combined, and it's a powerful story about racism in America and also in American baseball history, okay? So they start their tour today, October 10th, 1934. Let's go back a little bit. Well, actually, let's go back just a little bit. October 10th, 1921, the Kansas City Monarchs defeated the All-Nationals at Horton, Kansas by a 7-6 score, and John Donaldson robbed Cincinnati's Bubbles Hardgrave of a home run to save the game. Of course, the All-Nations won that. And Horton, Kansas. Hey, I presented in Horton, Kansas. I was going to think, I think that was maybe a year and a half ago, Horton, Kansas. So anything around Kansas, I do a lot of work with the Kansas Humanities and have been doing that for almost 10 years now. So there's very few towns of any size in the state of Kansas that I haven't appeared in. And I've appeared quite a bit in Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Nebraska as well. So I'm pretty well known in the midsection of the United States. But I do occasionally appear out on the West Coast, the East Coast, and if you follow me and you have an organization and you'd like for me to maybe come out and do something, I'd be happy to come out, have wonderful presentations, one of the most unique baseball presentations in the world today. All right. So that's John Donaldson. I will also mention John Donaldson, one of my personal favorites. He's been up for the Hall of Fame, getting in there to be in the Hall of Fame at least 3 times. First time 2006. He was also the last Hall of Fame inductions, the one I think 2021, and the last year was 2024. And he's up on all of those, and he just keeps missing by a few votes. John Donaldson, over 5,000 strikeouts, a great pitcher from Glasgow, Missouri. And I know right where that is. I presented in Glasgow on several occasions. It's right on the Missouri River, not too far from Columbia. If you know about Missouri, that's where the University of Missouri is, in Columbia. So it's down there by Boonville. And of course, My family were slaves in Brunswick, Missouri, prior to the Civil War. And Brunswick and Glasgow are not far apart, same region of the country there. So I know that area very well. And so that's where John Donaldson is from. So, and actually, years ago, John Donaldson had a cousin that lived in Kansas City, a lady, and I would go by and interview her, and she had lots of stories about how John Donaldson had ran away from home, and she had to play baseball, and how his parents didn't want him to pitch on Sundays. She had lots of stories related to that, and so these are things that have made it into the John Donaldson story over the years, but they actually came from his relative, yeah. So, all right, so this John Donaldson and playing in Horton, Kansas. That, if I'm correct, I'm trying to think. I appeared at a church in Horton, Kansas. I can't remember a lot about it, but I think there's a Native American reservation not too far from there as well. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Let's go to October 10th, 1932. Chet Brewer, six-hitter and 13 strikeouts, defeated a major league contingent of the players led by Paul and Lloyd Wainer and also Joe Cool at Wichita, Kansas by a 6-2 score. Willie Wells aided in the win with a home run over the right field fence with a mate on. All right, Chet Brewer, another one of my personal favorites. Some of these people I've had an opportunity to meet. Of course, Chet Brewer would be one of them. Back in I'm going to say, boy, it might have been 1980, maybe 88, I think it was. I went out to California and I stayed at Chet Brewer's house for 3 days. And we talked baseball, and he took me around to visit some of the baseball players and then also some of the widows. I remember we went by Herb Sewell's widow's house to talk to her. I remember we went out to Buster Hayward's house. I'm trying to think who else's house we went on that particular tour, but he took me around, and Chet Brewer was one of the most genuine figures that you would ever want to meet in baseball. He was a great inspiration for me, and just knowing Chet Brewer, who actually was born in Leavenworth, Kansas, which is probably about, I'd say about 25 miles from where I was born in Kansas City, Kansas. So we had that connection too. And the last time I saw Chet, he came to Leavenworth, Kansas. This probably had to be, oh man, maybe 1988. The last time I saw him in Kansas, I saw him before then, but after then. But he came to Leavenworth, Kansas, and I took my father down and my son, and unfortunately, I didn't take a picture with Chet, but I took a picture with him, my son, Chet, my dad, and my son, who was like not quite 1 year old. And my son's name is Joseph Allen. And when he was born, I named him after Newt Joseph and Newt Allen. So his middle name, Allen, is Allen, like a last name Allen. And we nicknamed him Newt because Newt Joseph and Newt Allen, their nickname was Newt. So I nicknamed him Newt, and most people in my family know him as Newt. But hey, when you're around this baseball subject, it finds a way into your personal life and everything. So that is Chet Brewer. Chet Brewer, wonderful guy. Most of you guys didn't get a chance to know Chet, but he was responsible for some of the greatest ball players of my youth coming to the big leagues, and that's because he operated Chet Brewer's rookies. And I'll just touch on it quickly. And I always like to say, most coaches, if they had one guy that reached the big leagues, they would brag on that guy forever. But Chet had like 8 guys on one team that went to the National and American League, and they made significant contributions. And he had people like Reggie Smith, who just so happened to be the first player, a professional player that I ever met. He had Bob Watson, who I knew very well. I have pictures in the house with me with Bob Watson. He had Doc Ellis, Bobby Tolan, Enos Cabello, I talked about a few days ago, was one of his players. I'm trying to think, his name was McFadden. He played for the Houston team. I can't remember his first name, but he also had, what was the pitcher's name? Oh, shucks, I'll call his name. He actually died from carbon monoxide in his car, left his car running, and he and his son passed away. So I'll call his name. I'm gonna just keep on going, and when I'm talking, it'll come to me, right? So if you see me just jump back in with this guy's name, just know that's what I was trying to do. All right. So we're gonna jump to October 10th, 1937. Let me get a drink right quick. All right. October 10th, 1937. Bob Feller's All-Stars defeated the Kansas City Monarchs 1-0 in Kansas City, Missouri. Wilbur Bullet Rogan went 3 for 4 and stole a base, and the Monarchs lost. Bullet Rogan was at the end of his career. Now, Bullet Rogan is another guy I'm real close to. I've written a book about him. By the way, Chet Brewer is probably in all of my work. If you read anything I've written modern day, right? Like my Dizzy Dean book or my book on Wilbur Bullet Rogan, you'll see Chet Brewer's name, see Wilbur Rogan in there, Wilbur Bullet Rogan in there often. My Negro Baseball Leagues of Photographic History, they were very instrumental in getting me to complete that project. And that's a book that in 1992 won the Casey Award for the best baseball book of the year. You can tell I've been at this a long time. That book, when it came out, I saw a review from the Baltimore Sun, and it said that me writing that book and putting 600 photographs of African-American baseball players in there, they said this is a feat that will never be duplicated. And believe it or not, to this day, there is no book with 600 photographs of African-American baseball players in it. So they did make a point. Nobody's been able to duplicate that. I don't know if they ever will, but never say never. But just know that it's held its own for all of those years. And I still find copies of it and sign them and sell them. It's been out of print for a number of years. So, they were all involved in this. Of course, Bob Feller, I did have a chance to meet Bob Feller. And of course, the reason I'm talking about Wilbur Bullet Rogan here, Wilbur, he's going to play one more year, 1938. So he's right at the end of his career. But this guy was one of, I still say, in my estimation, the greatest all-around baseball player that ever lived. And when I say all-around, I'm talking about someone who could hit and pitch. And that was Wilbur Bullet Rogan. Now, he's from Kansas City, Kansas, my hometown. And so when I started writing about Rogan, there were lots of people around. One guy went to my church. His name was Orrin Murray. He was a historian, the first historian I ever met. I met him in the 8th grade. And he was good friends with Rogan's brother, Willard. And in there, I write stories about how Rogan's stepmother, Beatrice, did not want him to play baseball. And he ended up kind of running away from home and joining the military. And actually, I knew some of Beatrice's descendants, because when Rogan's father, well, first of all, let me go back. Rogan was born in Oklahoma City. His mother passed away, so the father took himself, Wilbur, and then also their brother Willard, and came to Kansas City, Kansas. And that's when he met Beatrice. And so that was his stepmom, and she had 2 children. So I know descendants of the 2 children. Matter of fact, they still follow me on Facebook. So, and along with Wilbur Rogan's granddaughter, she also followed me. She also been to the house. So it's a lot of good things, and all these family connections have helped me to tell these stories. But unlike a lot of people who are writing about the Negro Leagues and talking about the Negro Leagues, they've never done the scholarship to actually go to places and also to interview all these people. I have a list of interviews that would just knock you off your socks. And so this is what I've done over the years. Okay, so let's go. So we got Bob Feller. Okay, beats the Kansas City Monarchs. Wilbur Rogan has a great game. All right, let's go to October 10th, 1961. Pitcher Sherman Jones is drafted by the New York Mets from the Cincinnati Reds as the 34th pick in the 1961 expansion draft. Now, why do you think I have Sherman Roadblock Jones? You probably never heard of Sherman Jones. Sherman Jones, I think he came from North Carolina, but he ended up, of course, again in my hometown. And the first time I ever put on a uniform was playing for Sherman Roadblock Jones. He was manager after he quit his major league career, or his national. He was in the National League. He ended up in Kansas City, and he worked with the youth and with the baseball program. And I was probably about the sixth grade, and I started playing baseball maybe a year before, and got pretty good in my neighborhood. So I just say, hey, I'm going to go down to the park and try for the team. Of course, I went down there, and Sherman Roadblock Jones became my first manager. First time I put on a uniform. Interesting thing that year, we had, we had a pretty tough neighborhood, but I got in a fisticuffs, we'll say, with a kid in the neighborhood, and I guess we were rolling on the ground, and there was some barbed wire on the ground, and I rolled on that barbed wire, ended up cutting my knee in 3 places, and ended up having stitches right on my knee, and so I was at home for the rest of the summer, couldn't bend my knee, and so I didn't get a chance to finish out that first year with Sherman Jones, but Sherman Jones was the first coach I had. So anyway, I always like to talk about Sherman Jones. He was pitched for the New York Mets, and he used to tell us great stories about Casey Stengel, and who was the manager of the 1962 Mets when he came up. And and if I'm correct, he did not pitch opening day for the 62 Mets, but I think he pitched the first home game for the 1962 Mets. Someone who's following this broadcast, you can look that up and let me know if that's correct. I'm almost sure it is. But anyway, Sherman Jones, he ended up being a Kansas State senator, and most years he ran unopposed because when he put his name on the ballot, nobody was going to beat him. But he was a great guy. And I think probably in his last year, this was like in the 90s, maybe late 90s, I had a sports program, I had a TV program, and I had Sherman come over and I interviewed him on the show. So since then I've lost those tapes, but I wish I had them. But yeah, Sherman Roadblock Jones. All right, so let's see. Okay, so that kind of does a little wrap up of this day in Black baseball history. So let's go to a coming. This is somebody who's born on this day. And this is October 10th, 1910. J. Rainey Bibbs, that's really Julius Bibbs, infielder for the Cincinnati Tigers, Chicago American Giants, and Kansas City Monarchs, is born in Henderson, Kentucky. I don't know how much you know about Rainey Bibbs. Man, I can tell you a lot. When I was working on my book, The Negro Baseball Leagues of Photographic History, I was trying to locate where ball players were. We didn't have any of this newspaper online. There was, most of this was digging out people. People like John Harway had written books, and Robert Peterson had written a book. Art Rust out of New York had written a book. And of course, the Hartwig had written some books out in California. But my approach to this Negro League Baseball was completely different because I was interested in everybody on the team, not just the marquee names like a Satchel Paige or a Josh Gibson. So I was out there looking for people that nobody looked for. And that was the case with Rainey Bibbs. And I talked to Buck O'Neill, who had played with them, and Buck was well-traveled because he was scouting and things like that. And he told me that the last he knew, Bibbs was in Terre Haute, Indiana. And so I began to do research, and I remember I went on this tour where this was probably in 1983. And I left Kansas City and I went to St. Louis. I was at Coop Papa Bell's house, and I left there, headed for Indiana. And I went to Terre Haute. And when I went to Terre Haute, I'm looking for Rainey Bibbs. Now, I didn't know his name was Julius Bibbs at that particular time, but I knew what Buck had told me. Buck told me he's in Indiana, Terre Haute. That's the last thing he knew. That's what Buck knew from his playing days. So I get to Terre Haute, and I don't know where to go. But in those days, we're talking about in the early 80s, Black communities were still pretty solid. So I was going down the street in my car, and I saw this Black lady, and a young lady about my age. I was in my 20s. So I said, hey, where is the African American community? She said, hey, give me a ride. I'll take you right there. And she hopped in. man, and she guided me right to the community. And so now she said, "This is it. You're here." So I'm in Terre Haute, Indiana, in the black community. Don't know anyone, and so I just kind of drove around and I saw an older black lady on the porch. I parked my car, get out of the car, and I go up to her. I say, "Hey, look, I'm doing a book on baseball history, and I'm looking for a guy named Rainy Bibbs." And she said, "You talking about Bibbs, the teacher? He used to live across the street, but he lives in Indianapolis." I got that close without any other assistance except the girl telling me where the black community is. And you could literally go into a black community at that particular time and you could locate people. I'll give you another example how this happened. I'm trying to take Turk Taylor, who was Jelly Taylor's brother. We had talked on the phone, but I'd never met him. And so he was in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and he had pictures of Jelly Taylor. And he wanted to bring them to me. And so I guess he was coming to Kansas City. He was going to go somewhere else. So he drove into Kansas City, Kansas, because he knew I lived in Kansas City, Kansas. And he went and he got a room at the Holiday Inn. Now he's going to look for me. He doesn't, all he had was my name. So he gets a room at the Holiday Inn. He goes down to breakfast the next morning and he asked the waitress, "Do you know a guy named Phil Dixon?" And the waitress was my cousin. She said, "I'll tell you right where he is." She gave me my telephone number, and that's how I acquired this whole collection of Jelly Taylor photographs. It was from his brother Turk, who just pulled into town and located me. But you could do that, and it's just amazing. If you were in an African American community and you were doing things, the community knew who you were. People in the community followed you. It's a little bit different now because through the late '80s and gentrification, the whole crack epidemic, it tore neighborhoods to pieces. But when I first started doing research, I could about go anywhere and capture the history that I was after. And so this is the way that I pulled these stories together. And a lot of the things that people are talking about today, and they go in your book and they get these stories from your book, they don't know how they ever got there. And so that was it. So I always like to talk about Rainy Bibbs. I ended up going to Indianapolis. His widow was still alive, and I think her name was Dorothy, if I'm correct. And Dorothy was the one who helped me put the story together for Bibbs. Nobody was talking about Bibbs at all. He was a retired biology teacher at Christopher Addicks School in Indiana. That meant nothing to most people. But today, because of that work, he is in the Indiana State, which he went to Indiana State College. He's in that Hall of Fame, and he's in the Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame. But when I first started, nobody cared about Rainy Bibbs. We've changed that in 45 years. If you could see the changes that have come about, and now you're hearing stories just from me that happened, that you can't get this information anywhere else. I've never written it down, but I talk about it here, okay? So let's go one more. We're gonna do a going, okay? This is someone who passed away. October 10th, 1970. Harold Yellow Horse Morris, a former Kansas City Monarchs pitcher, died in San Francisco, California. Yeah, Yellow Horse Morris. He was with the Pierce Giants, and before he came to the Kansas City Monarchs in 1924. So he was with the Monarchs on that first World Championship team, and his name was Yellow Horse Morris. A fair-skinned guy, good pitcher. He played for some other teams in the Negro League as well. But yeah, he was from the West Coast. And the Monarchs had several guys that they would get from the West Coast because in the wintertime, Bullet Rogan would go out, Lou Joseph, Andy Cooper, when he came, he would go out. Earlier, Otto Ray, he was with them out on the coast. Lem Hawkins, Dobie Moore, they were all on the coast. So they would see these good ball players. And so because of that, people like Washington, I'm trying to think of his first name, who played in 1920. He came from the West Coast. George Carr was a West Coast player who ended up in Kansas City. Of course, Yellow Horse Morris was another one, but he was up around Oakland, where the other ones were in Southern California. So, yeah, so this is all the history, and of course, Washington, who ended up on the team, that was Kenny Washington, the great football player's dad, and of course, yeah, he was in probably about 60 motion pictures, including some great ones like Gone with the Wind, King Kong. He was in that one. And he was in a movie with John Wayne where he played a feature part. So yeah, so anyway, I'm just rambling right now. Okay, so Yellow Horse Morris, and then I mentioned that he was with the Kansas City Monarchs when they won the World Series in 1924. But how about this one? In I want to say maybe 25, 25. So October the 10th, 1925, Hilldale defeated the Kansas City Monarchs 5-2 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to capture the 1925 World Series. So that happened in 1925. So just so happened I'll get to talk about World Series back to back. So guys, that about does it for me tonight. I'm really late. I went to see my great nephew play baseball tonight, and tomorrow I'm going to go down to the Negro Leagues Museum. Geddy Lee is going to be there. Now, Geddy Lee, I don't know if you guys know much about, rock, but he's a musician that played with Rush, and he's also quite the collector of sports memorabilia. So he has a new book out, and he's going to be at the Negro Leagues Museum tomorrow. So I imagine I'm going to go down there, and I don't know if I'll get a chance to see him, but I'm going to try. But maybe I'll get some pictures and get a little clip of some of the activity. I'm sure a lot of people won't be there because of his new book. They're going to be there because of his book and his music. And so he's found a way to take music and combine it with his first love of collecting baseball. And I can really relate to that because I play trumpet, and many times I'm out performing presentations for baseball, I'll bring my trumpet along. So if you ever follow me, you can hear me playing my trumpet as well. So I play the trumpet at funerals, taps. I play Take Me Out to the Ball Game, National Anthem, and I'm going to do a whole lot more with that next year. So hope to do that. So anyway, this is a late edition. But one of these days, I'm going to start coming on at the same time. But I appreciate everybody who comes in. I just see Bob, Poet, come in, and I appreciate Bob. He followed me quite a bit and talked about some of the little clips. He'll go through and mention some of the people I've talked about and follow up with those. I appreciate that, Bob. And so I will also say this. If you like what I'm doing here, God, go ahead and share it. And if you really like it, go ahead and hit that bell and subscribe, because my goal here is to get to 1,000 subscribers. And I'm getting ready to put a big push on to get to the 200 mark probably this weekend. I'm going to do some interesting things, and I'll probably do that tomorrow after I get back after watching Geddy Lee. Actually, hopefully I can meet him in person. So, and I did many years ago, so this will be maybe a reunion of that. So thank you guys. This is almost 29 minutes. That's a long one for me. But hey, it's late at night, so if you're up, I was talking baseball. So anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. And I appreciate everybody who follows me. Man, I love you guys. I couldn't do this if I didn't have you out there who come back and encourage me. And I always tell people, I don't have a job, I have a passion. So no one pays me to do this, and no one has paid me for 45 years, but my passion has carried me, and it's carried me to books and presentations, and then people pay me for that. And that is a blessing from God, nothing short of that, because I was just a kid who loved baseball, and it's amazing that I've been able to receive all the accolades that I have from just talking about baseball and being a part of baseball history. So thank you guys. Have a nice evening, and I will try to get on an earlier time tomorrow. All right, we're gonna see what we can get from Geddy Lee. Maybe I'll get an interview. You never know. You never know. All right, then. You have a nice evening.